Welcome everybody. My name is Matthew Fielding and I'm the Deputy Director of SIANI, the International Agriculture Network Initiative. And on behalf of the CGIAR Research Program on Climate Change, Agriculture and Food Security, on behalf of 2Scale, and on behalf of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, AgriProFocus, the Climate Smart Agriculture Youth Network, my colleagues at the Swedish International Agriculture Network Initiative, Practical Action, and the Climate and Agriculture Network for Africa, I'd like to welcome you all to this seminar, to this webinar, Youth in Agribusiness, Coping with COVID-19 in the Context of a Changing Climate. We're all aware of the diverse and disproportional impacts of COVID-19 and how it impacts those most at risk, older people, poor households, the undernourished, and those who live in remote rural areas without basic access to services or support. Young rural people, and especially young women, are one of the most vulnerable groups, already facing higher rates of unemployment and underemployment, and overrepresented in the informal economy. Most earn their income on a daily or weekly basis and have little or no access to health insurance or social security. Rural youth are at high risk to disproportionately suffer both from the pandemic and its aftermath. Yet often, dialogues within the field of development and agriculture, youth are portrayed as one of the main drivers of future successes, of saving the agricultural sector. They provide the energy. Thus is the dichotomy of youth. And as one of a partnership of organizations who invest significantly in youth, we started an online forum to find out what were the impacts of COVID-19 on the sector, and which we took the most inspiring of these stories to create a webinar that you're watching today, showing that even under these unique and pressing circumstances, it's not all doom and gloom. And when things get tough, this is often where we find innovation. Welcome to the seminar. I'll now pass you over to Alpha Gitau, our moderator for today. Alpha. You can unmute.
Sorry.
Thanks, Alpha. Go for it.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much, Matthew. Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, and good afternoon or good morning to everyone, depending on where you're watching us from, different time zones. And yes, I'd like to echo the sentiments of Matthew. Different ideologies, different ideas on how young people are coping with the situation right now. We understand how the effects have been, and that's why the idea of this webinar came up. And now today we are culminating 3 weeks discussions which happen online on the Kana platform, hosted by CCAFS, one of the partners of this program. And culmination of this brings together all the voices of young people across the continent, across the globe, trying to look, okay, what have been the effects? Also looking forward and seeing what can we learn from this pandemic, because I believe we have either negatives and positives as well. And most of the times that we can actually learn from the experiences that we've been able to go through. So today we'll have around 1.5 hours to hear stories from different entrepreneurs and different experts in this circle of youth enterprises and youth agribusiness. But also we'll be able to interact online with everyone who has been able to sign up for this specific webinar. And maybe before we start off, a few logistical issues. Number one is that we are not able to have a live online Q&A, and that's because this specific webinar got an attraction of around 430 people who signed up by today as we started off. So that would be a bit chaotic to have that. But secondly, to be able to enable people to be able to share their experiences or to actually ask questions, there's a tab just down on the screen which says Q&A, and that you are able to actually put your question there. And we can also be able to share and to actually vote for the question that we feel are much more pressing for each one of us. So if you go to the question and you just vote for it, then you'll be able to answer it. And then second of all is that we are not able to also have everyone's mic not muted. So you realize that you have muted all your mics, and that's because of avoiding echoes and avoiding disturbances in terms of communications. So In terms of sharing of the questions, please put your question on the Q&A, and Linda will be able to work on that, and Linda will be supporting us in terms of looking at the Q&A tab. And secondly, also, if you have any challenges, feel free to also put your comments on the chat section, where Matthew will be looking at it on and off, and we'll be able to address it as we move on during the webinar. So today we are joined by a number of interesting people who will be also introducing themselves as we go on in the webinar. So for now, I'd like to take this webinar to start off. And to start off, we are going to have Catherine Mungai from CCAFS, who will be able to share what did we really get from the online discussion, be able to highlight some of the key interesting aspects that we got from the online discussions from different people across the continent, but also we'll be able to highlight how do we see this rolling out. So thank you so much, and welcome, Catherine.
Hello, everyone, and thank you very much, Alpha. As I wait, okay, yes, so the slides are now up. As Alpha said, my name is Catherine Mungai, and I work with CCAFS. That's a CGIAR research program on climate smart, on climate change, agriculture, and food security, and I'm based in Nairobi. And I'll be sharing insights or highlights that came on through the online discussion that we kick-started on 20th June. And I'd like to point out that the platform is still open. So even as we continue with the discussion, if you feel that you would like to contribute or you have some insights that you'd like to share with us, kindly just log into the online discussion and share your thoughts, experiences, or any innovative ideas that you may have come across or that you're implementing as a young farmer. Basically, the online discussion and the webinar were answering some of the following questions. For example, as a young person engaged in agribusiness, how is COVID-19 and other climate-related shocks such as the floods and the deserts, locusts affecting your personal and professional life? How are you organizing your work and resources to cope with the crisis from an economic and health perspective, recognizing that COVID-19 is something that's actually affecting our health directly? How has your government and other organizations supported you to cope with these challenges? What lessons have you learned? What innovative ideas have you applied or observed? And what kind of support would you need to face this pandemic and other climate-related challenges? So in the next slides, I'll now be talking about some of the issues that were raised by the commenters online. And our first, so Matthew, next slide, please. Our first comment came from Nur Mohammed from Somali, actually. And they say that as the youth of Somali, the COVID-19 has led to young people being unemployed. They've stopped the ongoing between community. There's no information sharing, and people are unaware about the pandemic. And then there's also the issue of floods, and people have been displaced because of the floods from their homes, and especially the areas that are irrigated. And then the next challenge came in from Lawrence Tanui, who was speaking about the desert locusts in East Africa. And he says that they're causing a major crisis, not only for food, but also for humans, and also focusing on the livestock and also the birds. And he was pointing out that the challenge is how to control the outbreak. And he suggested that perhaps we need to have desert locust scouts to survey and report the outbreaks of the locust for the best control methods. And then our next challenge came in from Irene. Irene works also with pastoralists, and she says that experiences from the youth we work with have been immense, with some of the young people being retrenched. Some have lost their sources of income. This is affecting their purchasing power for farm inputs, such as fertilizer and certified seeds. The pandemic has also affected the livestock farming among the pastoralists, with many registering negative effects because of closure of livestock markets and the shutdown of hotels. As you know, we've been having this lockdown and people have been encouraged to stay home. And of course, this has affected industries such as the hotel industry. Then our next challenge Okay, we are done with the challenges. So now we look at some of the coping strategies that were proposed online. So Blaise says that it's difficult, but we have not lost hope. With the lockdown and the curfew that has been imposed in our areas, majority of youths are idle and depend on casual labor in farms for a day's meal. But she continues to say that as a mentor and as a strategist, I have talked to around 20 youths in my neighborhood on how they can use the already available resources and space to do something productive. And they have prepared a seedbed for kale and spinach, which they will be transplanting and able to sell to their neighborhoods, and also to start saving for larger projects. Next slide, please. Sorry. And then Stella Naguja from Uganda, she says that there have been some interesting innovations that were already with us, but now they seem more pronounced. There's a youth in the suburb where I stay who told me his story of how once he lost his job, he's used an old bicycle which he loads with fruits and vegetables, and he goes around with a loudspeaker to call out whoever needs the items that he's selling as he rides through the neighborhood. So you can see young people are really trying to cope with this tragedy. Hope that's not our current pandemic. Moving on, so the social media play a pivotal part in our businesses in these times, and it's highly advisable for the youth and small agro-businesses to tap into it and showcase to the world what we are able and capable to do in working to mitigate resilience in sustainable agribusiness and achieving the zero hunger and poverty. So this is a comment that came in from Paul Atsu, who's calling on the use of social media. Like even, I don't know if you can call Zoom social media, but you can see that we have really shifted a lot to the virtual platforms in order to cope with the pandemic. So these are some of the things that we need to capitalize on even as we move forward. Next slide, please. So yes, the lack of local, this is from Stella Durang, who says that the lack of local practical agricultural training centers is a challenge. And post-COVID-19, I would want to see more youths organizing to form hubs and centers of excellence. And I think this is very inspiring. Such centers can offer demo farms, information centers on finance, insurance, new hybrids of seeds. They can operate on membership fees and commissions. And this is a business opportunity that can be easily financed and scaled. So this discussion platform can therefore bring together stakeholders with the capacity to host agri-tech hackathons that result in actionable models and incubation of such ideas. So I hope as we move forward, we are going to be able to come up with a way forward that is going to enable us see how we can engage youth to become more resilient to climate risks and even other pandemics. Next slide, please. And finally, we have this tweet that I found very interesting from one of our partners who said that in the COVID-19 pandemic, young agripreneurs continue to epitomize this. And we have CSAYN's Anthony Malobi, who could not import a solar dryer, so he made one from locally assembled material. And I'm very excited to point out that Anthony is he's on the panel, I'm preempting, but he's on the panel, and I hope he's going to be sharing more about this innovative idea and how he came to think about it and how it's also helping him cope with the pandemic. And as I finalize, on the next slide, I'll just point out some of the suggestions and ideas and areas of support that are emerging from the online discussion. For example, there's the need to develop youth-focused business models. The young people need seed funds to help them set up their agri-businesses and also to enable them to become more sustainable and efficient. They need access to land. There was a suggestion also for developing financial tools that cater for the needs of young people. This could be insurance, ICT tools, weather forecast, and and many others. And there's also the issue of capacity building, because you find that young people require the technical skills that will enable them to establish and also to run business enterprises. So they have all these ideas and they could be able to implement them, but they need the technical skills to enable them to do that. So next slide. So just to point out that the discussion forum is still open, and in case you feel inspired during our webinar to share your inputs, kindly log in and let us know what your thoughts are. So on behalf of all the partners, I want to thank all the online contributors for their insights, for sharing their challenges and experiences with us, and also for their innovations. And hopefully, as we continue with the discussion, and even as we continue to cope with the pandemic, the panelists and other people who are joining us on the discussion, we can brainstorm on ideas how we can enable the young people to become more resilient. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for those very well put together thoughts. And a few things that come up into my mind already is we're in a situation whereby young people are facing tripartite kind of a pandemic. We have desert locust in the East African region, we have floods going on, then we have the pandemic itself. And indeed, this is a very hard hit kind of a situation for young people who, even before this, were already very much at risk. So the key things that come up from that are very interesting, and how we put up some of these mechanisms and structures to be able to support young people on those very good articulated way forwards will be very interesting. So as we move on forward to the next session, where we'll listen from young people who we've been able to support, even from different programs, from 2Scale, from SIANI, from CCAFS, and from all the other partners that we've been able to work with and support them. It'll be interesting to also hear from the participants on the Q&A section. And please kindly just direct your question. If you have a specific question directed to the person, just write directed to this and this person, but also just share your inputs in terms of what are some of the thoughts that come to your mind when you think about issues of how to support young people. We are, of course, not experts. We do not have all the answers, and that's why we have everyone today. So feel free to share that. And I would like to move on to our next session, where we'll have different young agripreneurs speaking to us. And to start us off will be Navies, who is working with practical action in Western Kenya region and working in the poultry value chains. And will be sharing with us how this has been unfolding from his own experience and his own business. So very much welcome, Navies.
Well, I'm glad to join everyone on this platform. My name is Navies. I own a company known as Mayombe Hatcheries. I provide egg hatching services to small scale farmers with no incubators of their own. I also trade in chicks, and I provide technical support or advisory services to poultry farmers across Western Kenya, where we work closely with practical action. Basically, what I can say is that with this COVID-19 tragedy, it has come with its own fortunes, such as all of a sudden we see that even as more youth tend to have more time on their hands, it has made some of them think of venturing into poultry farming. And we've seen a surge in demand for chicks. But at the same time, due to the restriction in movement by government, our supply chains have been disrupted. We are not able to get goods from other parts of the country. We are not able to get chicks from other parts of the country. Another thing I can say is also that the way we interact with farmers has also been limited. Now you notice that we are being asked to keep a social distance. So I no longer go to farms to meet my clients, but I try to do most of the consultation on phone. So we also seen that the floods that came affected a lot of farmers who live along the shores of Lake Victoria. Also, as nearby rivers burst, their kind of burst, or rather nearby rivers caused the flooding around the lake, and also the lake had some backflow. So a lot of young people lost their poultry to the floods, and that has really affected them and pushing them into the poverty. Otherwise, it's quite a challenge, and it's making us to be more innovative the way we do things in the new normal. Thank you.
Navies, thanks so much for that. Maybe a few questions to interact a bit more with you. So number one, from what I understood from you, is that there has been an increase in the demand for the chicks, yeah?
Very much, yes.
Okay. And has that led you to increasing your capacity, or what have you been able to do in terms of meeting that demand? What have you been doing differently to meet that demand?
Well, the demand has surged, but the supply is low, and the prices are also high. The margins have shrunk, so it's really tough. I'm trying to expand my capacity, but it's not really meeting the demand. But it has also made me now think outside the box, reach out to more partners, more people to work closely with. I'm going online, trying to know who else may be having what I need. Occasionally, we've been forced to even source chicks from across the borders, but now there's restriction in terms of that movement. Basically, it's a mixture of fortunes, I can say. I can't say it's a good thing, I can say it's a bad thing, but really that's the experience, my own personal experience. Now, okay. I also have, hello?
Hello, you can go on. I'm going.
Yes, now I also have now to get the people I work with used to perhaps using social media or to communicate, so that they don't really expect me to be with them physically. You can also notice now we are limited.
Hello, Navies.
Can't do the trainings we used to do closely with the people that. And
hello, Navies, we are losing you a bit. Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, we had lost you a bit.
Oh, you lost me a bit. I think someone is interfering with my call. Okay.
It's back? Okay, just go. Yeah, yes.
Yeah, so basically we are no longer able to conduct trainings, physical trainings. And not everybody is able to use such platforms as Zoom, but going forward, I think we may start having Zoom calls, Zoom meetings with our clients or our young people, if their capacity built to be able to do that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Navies. I know one of the panelists also, whom we support from TruScale, will be able to share a few ideas with you as well and with everyone as well on how you can be able to do training for farmers online and how you can kind of work around the situation. So, but thanks so much for those inputs. So maybe one last quick question. Have you been able to receive any support in terms of maybe from Practical Action, from other organizations in terms of supporting you during this period?
Very much. I think we are doing a lot with Practical Action. Even right now, we are working on a collaboration note. They are trying to see how they can help me increase my capacity. They can try help me lower my cost of production, that I can pass on to more youth and encourage more youth to engage in activities that can be a source of income to them. So Practical Action really has been a great pillar in my work, and I'm really working very closely with them. In Western
Thank you so much.
Especially Kisumu County.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much, Navies. Yeah, I think some of the key things that we need to look at is how to share this knowledge across young people within agribusiness as well, because I believe there's a lot that peer learning that can happen between even young entrepreneurs, but even beyond that. But also it's trying to look at how can we scale up some of these interesting innovations that are being done by some of the partners, for example, from TruScale, from CCAFS, from Practical Action. How can we be able to support some scaling of some of these innovations to support many more young people and to support even the cross-learning and the engagement that we have? So thanks so much, Navies. once again, everyone, feel free to put in your questions and answers or comments or inputs on the Q&A tab, but also on the chat section, you can be able to interact more and we'll be able to pick some of these questions as we move forward. Linda, do we have anything interesting for on the Q&A tab that is coming up? Maybe a minute before we go to the next.
Yes, we can take one question here from Selina Butali. What are the main limitations to advancing the poultry farming business, given that the market seems available?
Thank you so much, Linda. So maybe a minute, Navies, just a minute before we move on to Ruhakana, and you can respond to maybe one of these questions that came up strongly on the poultry value chain.
Well, I can say one of the major limitations is that many youth lack the knowledge. You know, many people want to keep chicken, but they really don't have the knowledge about how to keep chicken. And keeping poultry is knowledge intensive. You can have everything, but if you don't have the knowledge and skills, the project will fail. So building capacity in terms of training is really critical, and that's what we've been doing with practical action. We brought together youth. We have tried to do some training, not only in areas of production, but even market interest groups, to encourage youth and also to teach them how to run poultry as an enterprise, poultry farming as an enterprise. Does that answer the question, or I need to add more?
Thanks so much, Navies. That's okay. You can pick more later on. And thanks so much, Linda, for bringing that up. So without wasting too much time, I think I'm going to go to pick up the next speaker, who is Ruhakana, who is the CEO of Agrotourism Organization of Uganda, working closely with AgriProFocus. Welcome so much, Ruhakana. Hey, Ruhakana, we can't hear you.
Hello.
Hi, we can hear you now.
Yes, perfect. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you're watching us from. Ruhakana Joseph Taremwa is my name. I am an African based in Uganda. I work for a company called Agrotourism Association. Agrotourism Association, we mainly promote agribusiness enterprises as tourism attraction centers. So one actually would say we are in the business of tourism. Yes, COVID, everybody has talked about COVID-19 in a very negative perspective. But I would say, yes, it has also come up with quite a number of opportunities across the globe. And from my personal experience, in Uganda especially, everybody has come up to appreciate that agriculture or agribusiness is a very important sector globally. I think to me that's the lesson that I've learned, that everybody globally now is able to appreciate that agriculture is the biggest and the most important sector. Because yes, initially we could talk about supporting agribusiness, supporting it, but not really very many people actually see much value. But because many people are locked down now, because many people now cannot go for entertainment, they are only left with an option of actually eating. So that to me, it is very, very important that after COVID, many people who actually had not thought that this is a very big sector, they should be able to listen to us. Yes, but also another key important lesson that I have learned, the people have come to appreciate the role of ICT, especially.
Hello, Ruhakana. Hello. We lost you. Okay. I think maybe we should go on to the next panelist as we wait for Ruhakana to come back, and we're going to probably just take him back when he's back. So maybe Matthew can help me to put on Ian, Ian from Home Range Poultry, who is the CEO of Home Range Poultry, and working with 2Scale, and has been supported with 2Scale. So maybe, yes, Ian.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Ian.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who's tuned in. It's a pleasure to be on this webinar. And for purposes of this webinar, my name is Ian Mutwiri. I am the CEO for Home Range Poultry. Now, Home Range Poultry is a company that specializes in the sale and distribution of the improved kienyeji chicken. And just like Mayombe Hatcheries has actually outlined, there is, the poultry value chain. And our main business is to deal with the local indigenous kienyeji chicken. Perhaps the main difference between Home Range and Mayombe is the fact that Home Range is along the entire value chain, starting from hatching, going on to poultry feeds, going on to the trainings that Ruhakana had actually pointed out that you can't do this thing without the knowledge. And of course, we also do have an outgrowers program where we are able to assist the farmers, connect them with the market. We also do quite a lot in the consumption section, because most of the chicken that we actually buy from the poultry farmers is actually slaughtered and taken for consumption to the BOP consumers, and also to just ordinary Kenyans. So one of the key things that Home Range really does focus on is looking at these challenges which we are discussing and coming up with solutions. Now, Home Range Poultry has basically grown purely because we really like to focus on the problems that we note in the value chain, and we try to address that problem. Now, currently, Home Range is working with 2Scale on quite a wholesome project that is going to be focusing on the smallholder farmers and helping these smallholder farmers deal with some of the challenges that they actually face, which of course include access to quality chicks. So as I mentioned, Home Range Poultry is a hatchery. I'm sure at the very back you can see some of our posters for the chicks. So our chicks are sold directly to the farmers, direct farmer to farmer, or through various other partnerships. And on this note, I would actually look forward to working with Mayombe Hatcheries. I think there's a partnership that is brewing right there. So having said that, I would want perhaps, if it's possible, Alpha, to share the business model that we use for you to understand when we'll be discussing about the challenges that, yes. So here's an outline of basically the Home Range Poultry business model, which I would like to take a minute to explain. Maybe check at the center, there's Home Range Poultry, which is ourselves, and down to the smallholder farmers, we do supply the chicks, the feeds. The training is a very critical element, and also veterinary support. Now, you may train a farmer to really be able to, identify a disease, but they still need further support by a veterinary officer. And in Kenya, veterinary support is not really widespread at the grassroots. So connecting the farmer with veterinary support is very, very critical. And once a smallholder farmer produces his chicken, as you can see, we buy back the live chicken, which now we process and slaughter. And once we slaughter it, it is delivered as a dressed or packaged chicken directly to the consumer. Now, in our business model, we also appreciate that the farmer can also make direct sales to the consumer. So as you can see, there's also farmer to consumer sales, which we really strongly encourage. And you find that actually 60 to 70% of the chicken that is actually produced by the smallholder farmers is actually distributed to the consumer through direct sales, either at their farm gates or during the market days. Alpha. So being a youth who's actually been agribusiness, COVID has been quite a major challenge. And there are a couple of things that is actually affected. And one of them is actually, you notice that there's actually an interruption in the input supply chain. So for us, we are a company that largely depends on the farmers actually coming to us to get the chicks and the feeds. But now since the April 7th, when the government actually announced a cessation of movement in Nairobi, and we're within the Nairobi metropolitan, the farmers could actually not be able to come in. So that became one of the major effects of COVID on us. There's also another major issue, which is the loss of business for vets and trainers who work within our network. Now, within a particular area, let's say far-reaching areas, we work with partners, agro-vet shops that, we are able to refer farmers within that locality to them to give them support. And of course, unfortunately, these people have actually lost a lot of business since a lot of farmers are not able to access these chicks and feeds. There's also the other challenge that is the infiltration of poor quality feeds. This is becoming a major issue because whenever a gap arises, sometimes you find that there are unscrupulous business people who infiltrate to come in and bring farmers very poor quality feeds. And of course, this has become has had major effects to poultry farmers because has actually killed their production. You find that there's very poor production. Even for the farmers who had gotten chicks from us much earlier, and because of this COVID issue, they are not able to continue getting access to our high quality feed. You find that all of them are complaining of poor production, and this is causing them some massive financial losses. Of course, there's definitely from all this, the drop in farm output. So you find that once the farmers are not able to access chicks or access feeds and all these other inputs, unfortunately, their production drops drastically. So that is on the end to do with the farmer. As a company, also HomeRange, there's been quite a number of effects of COVID and climate change. And one of the major effects is, of course, the drop in income, considering that, we are not moving out as many chicks and feeds as we usually used to. Now, as my own hatcheries has actually pointed out, it is very true, especially in the last 2 months. Orders for chicks have actually skyrocketed. I can confirm that for us, we've actually experienced almost between 200 and 300% increase in our orders for chicks. So that's good for business. However, because of the, again, drop in poultry output, so, like you mentioned, we are not able to meet the demand. Our supply is not able to meet the demand that is there. So that's a major challenge. Of course, we've had to take austerity HR measures, just like any other company. There's also, challenges such as cutting down on production. And I know one of the attendants had actually asked, if there's demand, why are you not increasing production? And I'll tell you for free that increase in production is always connected to the aspect to do with the poultry farm output, because it's the eggs that we incubate. So if the eggs are actually becoming less, so it becomes a problem for you to meet that demand. So as much as there's business, unfortunately, because of the low output of the eggs, we have to reduce the output for chicks as well. So there's that effect. The other thing that you notice at the farm level, the smallholder farm level, is that there's actually a drop in farm output. I already mentioned that, because there's a supply interactions. And with this, I'm relating this to where the farmer is actually selling his chicken to HomeRange. You realize that because of the lockdown, unfortunately, they're not able to bring the chicken to us. So of course, there's a supply interruption. And of course, that causes them a drop in their income. There are farmers out there who are wholly depending on HomeRange poultry to buy their chicken back. And unfortunately, because they are not able to bring the chicken to us, it becomes a problem for them, especially those ones who are in far-flung areas. There's also the issue that I mentioned about the drop in quality, because for HomeRange, for us, it's very, very important. There are quality aspects that the farmer has to meet. So when they're not getting quality feeds, of course, the quality output is low, and we unfortunately are not able to absorb that product. Then on the processing side, where we process or slaughter the chicken for consumption market, we realize that there's actually a reduction of the personnel who are in that line, purely because the output has also gone down. And of course, to the consumer, you and I, as a consumer, if I was to speak, we're also affected because there's a drop in supply. And this drop in supply, like currently in Nairobi, has seen the skyrocketing of chicken, especially the local kienyeji chicken, which is what we specialize in. And of course, whenever this supply goes down, you find that nutritional issues also arise because people are no longer able to access a quality nutritious products. So apart from that, you find that we have had to come up with coping mechanisms, and this is where perhaps people like Mayombe could actually pick up a leaf on how have we managed to turn around the business and continue to stay in business. one, I'll tell you for free that being in business for 9-10 years does help because it gives you a lot of business experience. So to the youth who are out there who are actually venturing into agribusiness, I'll strongly encourage you not to give up just because, you know, you're experiencing a few challenges. All of us have experienced those challenges, but look at it, 9-10 years down the line, you're still in business and it's actually paying off. So what are some of the strategies that we've actually employed, some of the coping strategies since COVID was announced? So one of the key things, like I mentioned, is that there was a lockdown of Nairobi metropolitan area, and farmers are not able to come in to get our chicks or feeds, and we're also not able to go out. However, the government did mention that they're allowing movement of cargo and farm produce. So we use that loophole to contract transporters who, you know, open people who are offering transport. Now, these people are the ones that we link the farmer with, and the farmer can use those people to get products from us, and that transporter goes and delivers to the farmer. So, of course, there has been an effect that, you know, this is going to cause a rise in the cost for the farmer, but it's a minimal cost considering that you can't be able to get the chicks directly yourself. So you find that we've also developed, like Alfred said, an online poultry training module. Now, what is very interesting about this is that the poultry farming module took us almost 2 years to conceptualize it, but it only took us 2 weeks the moment COVID hit for us to implement it. And you are online, and we actually host it on the Facebook groups. So what basically happens is that we've created content that is almost about 12 hours. And this content is pretty comprehensive and actually also includes a tour of our poultry farm, so that, you know, once you get your training, you're also able to see how the farm looks and how we operate. And this online training has been quite an eye-opener, and I would strongly encourage anyone in agribusiness to actually consider deploying that. And you don't have to look for an expensive option. You can always use platforms, social media platforms such as Facebook groups and Instagram and all that, and you get paid, and you know, you get people access. And our trainings have actually continued seamlessly even after COVID, despite the fact that people are not able to move in. And actually, these as
Ian,
yes,
I'm
please.
very sorry to interrupt you, but could you have your mic a bit closer to your mouth, because we're having some difficulties with the sound.
Is it better now?
I hope so.
I hope
yes,
so.
and could you please also take maybe 2 more minutes to wrap up?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thanks.
So, apart from the issue to do with utilizing social media platform, we've actually also started using technology to monitor our farms. You realize, like Mayombe noted, that sometimes you're not able to go to the farmers. Actually, it's the same case with me. I'm not able to go to the farmers often I used to go manage the place. So what I've done is I've actually installed CCTV surveillance, Wi-Fi CCTV surveillance. As I'm sitting here talking to you on this webinar, I'm throwing my eyes on the left side and checking out the screens for my farm, and I'm able to get access to the entire operations at the farm. And whenever I have customers coming in, I'm able to coordinate with the team at the farm to actually continue making sales. From this same place where I'm seated, I'm also able to monitor my chicks, which are at the farm. And I'm also able to use various other technology outputs, such as there's something that is called the Arenifu Smart Brooder System, that is actually able to help you monitor your chicks remotely to find out whether the temperature in the brooders is correct. And this is actually a partner that we were linked with through the 2Scale program. Also, on the aspect to do with climate change, we realized that because of our drop in earnings, we had to look for a cheaper solution to provide heat to our chicks. So what we did is that we explored the option of using biofuel, specifically an ethanol-based biofuel. And what has been amazing is that this biofuel has helped us cut down the cost of electricity to almost a bare minimum. And number one is, of course, it's climate smart solution, and that it's really helped us. So finally, we also have booklets, which I would strongly encourage everyone who's in agribusiness to look for all these channels, especially social media, to be able to reach out to their customers.
Thank you so much, Ian. Very key points coming out in terms of innovation, in terms of trying to look at new ways of doing things. And one of the key agendas for this webinar as well was to look at how do you bridge the partnership between people like Ian and people like Mayombe Hatcheries to be able to also build that cross-learning opportunities. And I see these are a very good opportunity to try and look at how can you work together, the both of you. So thanks so much, Ian, for your inputs. Thanks so much for your invaluable contributions. So maybe, Linda, is there anything coming up strongly?
The Q&A is very, very active. It's very fun to see, but we could take this question that goes both to Ian and Navies. What do you think has caused the increased demand for chicks? Is it that the supply has reduced due to the COVID, or suddenly more people are interested in poultry farming?
1 minute,
Okay.
Ian.
Yes, so basically from our perspective, Linda, the main reason why there's been this spike of demand for chicken is purely because people are losing their jobs, you know, the formal kind of office jobs, and people are looking, what other options can they do? I can tell you for free that in the last 2 months, even in Kenya, quite a number of people have lost their jobs. So they're looking for other alternative income generating activities, and poultry always looks, and is always the #1 option, purely because as much as it is high capital intensive, you can always start very small and your project could actually grow. When we started, we only started with about, I started only with about 50 chicks. And I think now we keep, you know, a stock of almost about 2,000 chicken. And so this loss of income by a lot of people is actually now sort of becoming a blessing to people who are in the agribusiness, for people to look for alternative incomes.
Okay, thanks so much, Ian. Navies, do you have something to add on top of that? Just a minute, please.
Well, let me just say very quickly that Ian has really put it out very clearly that now as people have more time on their hands, they are looking for something, some alternative economic activities, and
yeah, okay. Thanks so much, Navies. Thanks so much, Ian, for your...
one of them. And yes, okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ian, as well, for your contributions. Now, I would like to move on to the next speaker, which is Anthony Malovi, and then I'll come back to you, Ruhakana, immediately after Anthony has been done. So welcome so much, Anthony.
Hello?
Anthony, we can't hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes, my name is Anthony Malovi, and currently, hello?
Yes, go ahead, Anthony. You can hear you.
Yes, you can hear me well, huh?
Yes.
Yes, my name is Anthony Malovi, and I'm the Assistant Country Coordinator for CSAYN Kenya. I'm also an entrepreneur, and I also sit on the board of Kenya National Chambers of Commerce and Industry. So for today, I'll just speak about innovation and what as youth we can do in terms of agriculture. So basically, when Catherine was speaking, I saw she put up a photo of a solar dryer that I made about 2-3 weeks ago. Actually, it came about because of, in Trans Nzoia where I am, we have a lot of floods and so many people are suffering. And you see, we are also the food basket of Kenya, where so many people are growing a lot of crops. So here we have rain, here we have COVID, here we have locust, although it's not too much. But what can a young person or basically a farmer do when you encounter such situations? So what I can basically speak about, I cannot really speak about COVID or the locust of flooding. I'll just say that innovation is something that we need to embrace as farmers and as young people, because we can talk about this COVID in terms of lack of market. When the government closed all the markets, then here you have someone who wanted to buy something, he cannot go to town, he cannot sell his produce, he cannot buy. So what do? You see, we have someone like Joseph of Mkulimayang. Actually, Mkulimayang started way back, long time ago, but people didn't know about it. And just because we have now COVID, is now when people have realized there's something called Mkulimayang, where you can post your stuff and you can sell your things. Another thing we can say is when you talk about maybe the locusts, you need to spray the locusts, which is the easiest way. We can use maybe drones to spray them. But you see, all these things, yes, they were there, but we didn't use them. Or maybe someone was just saying, we don't need these things as for now. But I think COVID is maybe is a blessing in disguise, because now all these innovations that we had, Now we can put them into task. So what I can basically say is that I think we need to embrace all the technology that we have in agriculture. We need to use all the minds that we have. And also, we need to make sure that all this technology, each and everyone knows about it. Because here I am in Trans Nzoia, in Kitale, when I tell someone that you can maybe use the Yara app so that you can know whether it will rain tomorrow or when it will rain. But someone will ask me, what is Yara? You see, but as we are on social media, maybe on Twitter, we talk about Yara, we talk about all that, but someone who is in the farm, he doesn't know about that. So we need to create awareness about these things. Any type of innovation that one has, I think it would be better if we have such partners as, maybe we can talk about, we have people like SIAT, we have the World Bank and all these organizations. I think we need to create awareness about all these types of innovations that someone might use so that he can go ahead and do his farming well. Another thing maybe I can say about is, mostly we have these conferences. Yes, we have them in Nairobi or any country, but I think we need to target those farmers that are outside the town. I think that's the target that we need to go to. Because if we talk about these things only in towns, it will be hard for us. And many people who do farming, actually, okay, nowadays I see even in town, people are doing because of the new types of farming methods like vertical farming and other hydroponics. But you see, most of the farmers are far away. So we need to take these ideas to them. We need to show them that actually there are these things that you can use. There is this app where you can maybe post your produce and someone will call you. You see, with that, we eliminate also these middlemen who come here to also try to make a living, though in another bad way. Another thing maybe I can speak about is all these organizations that we have. I think we need to nurture the youth more, because we had started a program with CSAYN where we used to go to schools, universities. We talk about agriculture, we talk about the new innovations that are there and all the opportunities that one can do. I think this is the way to go, because if we want to target the young people about agriculture, then we need to give them information about agriculture. So I think I'll just be brief. I saw Catherine said something about the solar dryer. Actually, the solar dryer is a new innovations. Like mine is a hybrid one. Hybrid meaning it can use electricity, it can use the sun, and also it can use biogas. So you see, I was thinking in terms of your farm. What do you have in your farm? Do you have electricity? Do you have, is the sunlight enough for you? Do you have cow dung? You see, if you have all these things, then it will be easier for you to make a simple dryer that you can use to dry anything, maybe it's maize, fish, or any other thing. So what I can basically, as I finish, I can say is that we need to embrace technology and we need to create awareness. We can talk about it on Twitter, yes, but how many people in the rural areas have smartphones? See, that's the disconnect. So we need to go to those people and tell them that we have this thing that can work. We can talk about the floods. The floods, maybe it brings about fungus because so many crops, I've seen so many people are suffering because the crops have gone bad. But you see, too much rain also brings fungal diseases. And like I was saying, I made another mobile application, although it's not out in the market. So with this mobile application, it's very simple. I've planted today, let's say cashew nuts. I've planted today, and I expect maybe in 3 weeks' time or in 4 weeks' time, there will be a certain disease that will be there. You see, so this app will alert me after 4 weeks. I'll go and check my crops and see, okay, I'm expecting this type of disease. Where can I get now maybe can I get an agronomist to come and see it, or what can I do? You see, these are the types of things that can make someone at least have fun in farming. Because when you have planted something and then you are waiting for maybe a month, you go to your farm and you find like nothing is there. So I think we really need to embrace innovation, and we really need to create awareness to everybody who is doing agriculture.
Okay, thanks so much, Anthony. And thanks so much for the innovation of a solar dryer. I think once again, a very key point coming out is on innovation. And most of the times when we hear that young people very tech savvy, are very well versed with technology, and they can we can harness that energy and that know-how and that knowledge to be able to support the agricultural system. But also, on the other hand, most times when we hear that indeed, how do you support young people to get access to some of these innovations? Because really, sometimes innovations are very costly as well. But in this perspective, we see a very good example where you can actually use locally available resources to be able to actually get the innovation that you wanted to do. So maybe I will leave it at that point for now. Maybe we can pick questions afterwards. But then I'd like to come back to Ruhakana for some few minutes because we lost you on the way, and would like to give you a few more minutes to be able to finish up your presentation. Then maybe Linda, after Ruhakana speaks, then you can come back and get questions maybe for Ruhakana and for Anthony, then before we get to the next panelist. Thanks so much. Welcome, Ruhakana.
Thank you so much. Yes, I was making a point on opportunities for COVID. Now, and the first point I talked about was, to me, it is very important to appreciate that every part of the globe, especially in Uganda, among the people that I normally meet, everybody has come to appreciate that agriculture is the biggest and the most important sector. That was done. But secondly, most of the farmers and other stakeholders have also come to appreciate the role of ICT in agriculture and agribusiness development. Because in agrotourism, we do quite a lot of trainings, hands-on trainings. We go to the field and meet very many farmers. Every other Friday since the 31st March, that's when the lockdown started in Uganda, we have held Zoom meetings. But it's very, very surprising how actually rural-based farmers struggle and talk to their daughters and their sons, to help them and get them connected to Zoom so that they can benefit from our meetings. So to me, it's important also that everybody has come to appreciate how ICT is important and how it has enabled farmers to grow their businesses. Yes, but also another opportunity that has been brought about by COVID is the level of innovativeness. Everybody seems now to be thinking. It looks like people used to sleep so much, but everybody now is really thinking of how best they can survive, how best they can grow their businesses. And to me, that's very, very important. Because I think for the last 3 years, I've been telling people to do home deliveries of agricultural produce. But most of this I will talk to, they actually will not look or see much sense in business-wise for one delivering food. But surprisingly now, everybody is talking about delivering food, fresh food, families. And I think to me, that's also important. Even when COVID has brought a number of hindrances and challenges, there are quite a number of opportunities that we now have experienced. A number of challenges, yes, of course, as I already mentioned, my business basically relies so much on transport because we do tourism. For those that are not so much conversant, it's basically agriculture and tourism. That's basically our business. As people are going to look at national parks and mountains and gorillas and lakes, me and my team, I actually take people to go and see farms, to go and see coffee farms, to go and visit tea farms, to go and visit agribusiness processing centers. That's majorly my business. And it has been affected because I think since 31st March 2020, there hasn't been any movements. Transport was put down as a measure to cut down the pandemic. So it has hit us badly. But even then, what do we have to do as agrotourism? Agrotourism is not a business that everybody had appreciated initially. But because of the COVID pandemic, it has also given us an opportunity to actually inform many people about the role of agrotourism. I recently had a meeting with the government of Uganda about how we can reform tourism sector, because now whites will not be able to come from all over the world to come to Uganda to look at the national parks. And one of the things that came out strongly was if agrotourism can be promoted and can be supported, many people would benefit. And the biggest beneficiary would actually be the farmers themselves, because how the farmers, their level of production has possibly gone down but also the level of income from the farmers has not been the best. But in agrotourism, basically what we do is we tend to add another form of income to existing agribusiness enterprises. For example, say one who has a coffee farm or one who has poultry farm, like my Kenyan friends that I've been talking previously. So what we do is we go to this farmer and build his or her capacity so that this farmer is able to actually entertain people to go to his farm. But the same principle of tourism is applicable when people or when visitors go to the farm, they actually pay. They actually pay money as entrance fees because they go and get excited, but also they learn practically. So it's a two-way situation that me or this youth that has a farm benefit because people have come to this farm and have paid. But also even these people that have gone to this farm, they're also able to actually learn agriculture in a practical perspective.
Okay.
So as a result of COVID, we have been able to reach out to all our members across the country, all of them, and have been organizing their farms so that immediately after COVID pandemic, all our farmers, all our members, all our youth that we work with are able to do agrotourism in a better professional manner, also to have it as a sustainable enterprise.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ruhakana. Maybe a quick question. So by you doing Zoom meetings and Zoom trainings for these farmers, are you still able to reach a significant number as you would have reached when you're doing physical meetings, or is that a bit different?
It's a bit different. Of course, we are not reaching the number as we would have. But the point I was trying to make is, yes, people have actually appreciated that things can be done using ICT. And if we continue to incorporate ICT and then physical movement, then I'm sure we're going to reach the number of many people that we wouldn't have reached if possibly COVID had not come into play.
Okay. Maybe after this, we should do an agro tour to Uganda for chicken.
Please. For information, every other year we organize agro tours across the globe. This year alone, we had around 6 people that had applied for Kenya International Trade Fair in Nairobi, but because of the pandemic, I'm sure that's not possible. But every other year we do quite a number of itineraries and we form very many. And surprisingly, the biggest population is always the youth population.
Thanks so much for continuously engaging the young people and continuously bridging the gap of knowledge and peer learning and peer influence. And thanks so much for that. And thanks so much also for your invaluable inputs. So without much ado, Linda, are there any pertinent questions coming in for Anthony and for Ruhakana before we go into the next panelist?
Yes, we can take one question first for Ruhakana. You acknowledge that agriculture is now appreciated globally. So when it comes to Uganda, do you think the government is prioritizing this sector? And what do you think the government can put more focus on?
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, yes. In Uganda, the government has also appreciated that this is the biggest sector. And I think 3 or 4 days ago, our Minister for Finance read out the budget. Surprisingly, I think this is the time when agriculture has been allocated a lot of money. Every other year we talk about implementing the budget allocation, but it was surprised that I think this is the first year, I think in history, that the sector of agriculture has been given a lot of money. I think agriculture and sector. Yes, so it is evident, given the budget allocation, that yes, even in Uganda, the government has appreciated the role of agriculture as a result of COVID pandemic.
Okay. Thanks so much, Ruhakana. Maybe Matthew, is there anything that's coming up from the chat that's interesting for everyone to know?
The main comments we have on the chat is for people to speak louder. Otherwise, all the questions are in the Q&A. Thanks.
Okay, thanks so much, Matthew. Linda, one more question, or is? Maybe we can move on and then we can
yes, we can move on, and I will come back to the questions. Yes, thank you.
Thanks so much, Linda. Now I'd like to get to hear a bit more from a partners or development partners and actors who are working on the youth and supporting young people. And to start us off for a few minutes, I'd like to give it up to Jacob. Jacob Ochieng, who is from Practical Action Kenya. So please, Jacob, and take us forward. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, and hello to all our viewers around the world. I'd like to start off by saying that as Practical Action, we are really proud of the youth who are in agribusiness. We want to salute your efforts. We want to tell you that you are part of the critical chain for food security around the world. And as you realize, as much as COVID has brought very unprecedented impacts on economy, all governments have actually declared food and services as essential services. So we are proud of you, and as Practical Action, I want to say that we are putting our best foot forward to ensure that whatever it will take for us to ensure that the youth in agribusiness sustain their work is something that is top of our priority. So let me start by putting it this way. We are talking about how to go through COVID at the backdrop of climate change. Now, first things first, as Practical Action and concerning the work we do, one thing we have realized is that we will always have to prepare our agribusinesses to face off hazards. Practical Action has always worked around this, in terms of supporting communities and the youth in agribusiness on early warning systems. And it is important to realize at this point that the impacts of climate change will outlive those of COVID. Floods have been here before COVID, droughts have been here before COVID, locust invasions have been here before COVID, and we are at a point whereby we are now thinking that as we respond to COVID, the gains that we have made with the youth in terms of climate change adaptation must be safeguarded. If they are not safeguarded, then we are going to lose because climate change is going to outlive COVID. That does not mean that we become complacent and don't really address the issues of resilience for COVID in agriculture. One of the things that we want to emphasize is that the practices that the youth in agribusiness have been doing to ensure that the agribusinesses are resilient to climate change should be safeguarded. We have been supporting the youth, soil conservation, early warning systems. The technologies that I'm hearing about in this webinar are very fantastic. Those have to continue, taking shape. We hear about, the scales that the youth have been able to have and improve the agribusinesses to be resilient to climate change. Those ones have to be to continue being adopted. Also being alert and just ensuring that the disease cycles that are climate related are also incorporated in our agribusiness frameworks. I hear very nice stories about poultry agribusinesses. Those are climate sensitive sectors, and all the technologies, the knowledge, the early warning systems, monitoring disease cycles that are impacting those agribusinesses from climate change have to continue happening. Now, back to the focus of how do we now bring all that and move in a trajectory that now recognizes that COVID is here with us. First thing, we are supporting the youth to ensure that they are safe in the agribusinesses. And this is something that we recognize because nobody can work when they are sick. Today, we know very well that the mortality out of COVID is affecting demographics at different ranges. The youth seem to be recording the least, but that does not mean that the concern should be thrown to the wind. We as Practical Action we are supporting behavior change communication efforts to ensure that the youth understand that they have to be safe. When we are safe in agribusinesses, we stop spreading the virus. We can be able to work in agribusinesses. We are healthy. We can connect. We can be able to partner. We can be able to move our businesses around. So number one thing that Practical Action is doing is that we are at the forefront to ensure that this messaging goes a long way to ensure that our youth who are in agribusiness join hands to help the world stop the spread of the viruses. The next thing,
Jacob, if I may interrupt. So for example, if you're saying you're supporting agribusinesses to be able to remain safe, so are you giving, for example, sanitizers and masks, or what are you exactly doing?
Yes, one thing we are supporting with appropriate messaging that be consumed by the youth. Is important for people to understand what it means to stay safe. And then we are also supporting efforts with the hygiene services, sanitizers. There is the training on the wearing of the masks, and we also have, today we are distributing, water storage facilities which are going to benefit, all vulnerable members of the community, including the youth in agribusiness.
Okay, thanks so much. Very critical access to information. But maybe a few more minutes, Jacob, 2 more minutes, and you could also share maybe a few more things that you're doing to support these agribusinesses.
Thank you. The next, after we have addressed the issue of stopping the spread, the next important strand in this business of complying and responding to COVID on COVID resilience is to be in a position to keep essential services running in agriculture. So today we have supported some county governments in Western Kenya to have platforms that can help them to coordinate COVID response, digital platforms. And these digital platforms have a great potential to be able to support e-extension. They can be able to discuss issues of e-marketing. I have had a panelist here talking about networking, and networking within a lockdown it can be tricky. And these digital platforms that we are supporting, the county governments in Western Kenya, will go a very long way. And I would want to say that e-extension is something that is key here. When people cannot physically meet to transact training, then the option is to do it safely. And the option of doing it safely must be aided by technology. And the technology here that we have seen happening, we have Zoom platforms, we have Facebook networks, we have WhatsApp groups, and simple mobile application platforms. So that will support e-extension, that will support e-marketing. We need to be in a position, and as practical action, we're supporting the youth to network among themselves to gather market intelligence for their products. This is key because now we have interruptions in the supply chain. The last thing which we are doing as practical action is to preposition ourselves to learn from what is happening around climate change and COVID combined response to ensure that this is taken forward to a progressive new planning for agribusiness for the youth, so that we don't lose whatever we have learned. Today, as we speak, there are, a lot of learning is taking place. And the next planning for alternatives is something that should be in a position to incorporate the learning we have had around climate change, the learning we have had about around response as a result of COVID. And this combined learning is what practical action is positioning itself so that it can be able to take it to the next milestone of programming for multi-hazard resilience for youth in agribusiness. Otherwise, we want to say that we will keep applying ourselves to understand the inhibitors, the opportunities, and the challenges that should be able to take youth agribusiness to the next milestone. We ask our viewers to follow us in Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, because we exist as practical action to make the world work better for everyone, including the youth. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Jacob, for those invaluable inputs. I don't have any question, but key things that are coming up is access to information for young people, access to innovation and innovative ideas and sharing of experiences, and also getting to know where they can go in terms of asking for support. And it's good to hear that practical action is open to support these young people when moving forward. And thanks so much for that. And I'd like now to move on to the next speaker, who will be sharing some of the insights they were able to get from an online survey they did on the effects of the youth on COVID-19 and their agribusinesses, who is Ms. Mazia Pafum from UN-FAO. So please feel free and go on.
Hi everybody. Thanks, Alpha. It's a pleasure for me joining this discussion today. I'm here in my position as youth engagement specialist. I work for FAO and particularly for a multi-country program that aims to boost decent jobs for youth in the agri-food system. So in my role, I usually work to raise the voice and strengthen the agency of rural youth so that they can have play a bigger role and participate meaningfully in the agri-food systems, in policy dialogues. Today we've heard from many successful agripreneurs, but what we try to do also is to reach out to those that are less skilled and maybe underserved youth. And one of the key strategies that we used to do so is to strengthen partnerships with existing rural youth networks and organizations so that they can build up their capacities to be more inclusive and reach out and provide better services also to those underserved youth. So with outbreak of COVID-19 in March, we launched an initiative very similar to the consultation that Catherine mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, to reach out and hear from the rural youth through these networks and groups of young farmers, champions, agripreneurs that collaborate with FAO across countries. To mention a few partner organizations, especially in East Africa, we mobilized, for instance, the RIAF Youth in Agribusiness, RIAF, which is the Rwanda Youth in Agribusiness Forum, or the Uganda Young Farmer Champions Network, youth associated with the Eastern African Farmer Federation, and so on. So thanks to them, we were able to beyond, let's say, the online surveys, we were able also to reduce access barriers because we could also reach out through WhatsApp, email, phones, and we were able to receive inputs in many formats that respondents were feeling more comfortable with. So we actually heard from over 200 youth from 24 different African countries through a structured online survey, but we also received many direct testimonies, video messages, and stories that we've been also capturing on the FAO website. This information helped us understand very quickly what was the situation on the ground, the impact of the outbreak in the lives and businesses of these youth. And we also wanted to determine together with them what was more key and feasible to act upon in that, in the very short term. So what these youth shared with us were the challenges they were facing, interestingly, across very different kind of organizations. We heard from small individual businesses, we heard from cooperatives, social enterprises that operated along different agri-food value chains. We also heard the perspectives of companies that produce maybe seeds, biogas, fertilizers, or those that provide agribusiness consultancy or marketing services. And so consistently across all of this variety of activities, they reported as major effects of COVID-19 what we also heard today, majorly loss of income, layoff of casual workers, so loss of employment opportunities, reduced markets and post-harvest losses, higher business costs due to higher costs of transportation, inputs, services. And so as a result of these higher running costs and the lower revenues, many found themselves in financial constraints, struggling with payments of loans, bills, and rents. Many were telling us that they found themselves in a business dilemma, and they didn't know how to go ahead, so resorted to reducing the scale of production and the operational costs. So maybe hiring less farm workers or asking family members to support, taking over the transportation, delivery of products. One interesting experience that we heard from the Yofchan, this network of young farmer champions in Uganda, is that they were able to negotiate with boda cyclists a fixed price so that their members could afford to transport produce to the trading centers. But we have to say a fair share of agripreneurs that responded showed that they were reacting very fast to adapt their business models, and also trying to challenge themselves and think out of the box, find new opportunities. And so the main coping strategies that we heard of are, of course, what has been mentioned, alternative marketing strategies, and there's been an accelerated move to online marketing and sales. So everybody is settling orders on social media, arranging for home delivery and maybe mobile payments. A second strategy that it's worth highlighting is that many have started adding value to their primary products. Now, finding themselves with a surplus of fresh products, they started exploring how to process, how to add value. For instance, beekeepers that started to make bee wax or further other byproducts. But perhaps for this discussion today, what is most relevant is that many started to use locally sourced agricultural inputs to replace those that were previously imported and now were unavailable or maybe too expensive. So we're talking about seeds, fertilizers, also alternative animal feed. So many switched to own production of animal feed, or maybe using vegetation instead of cereal. Another interesting experience was like using bamboo instead of iron poles for the construction of banana chambers. We heard examples of replacing agrochemicals with organic fertilizers and pesticides produced at home. I think these kind of green solutions that are emerging as part of the response are maybe one of the most interesting examples that need to be watched out and maybe accompanied in the post-COVID-19 phase for long-term sustainability. Also, another interesting case, for instance, from Uganda in an agri-youth incubator is that they were starting to produce masks from banana fiber. So, I think in terms of FAO, what we have been doing at the global level, we have used this information, as I was saying, to advocate for youth inclusive responses with development partners and at country level with the government. So we have been providing policy advice for the next steps, particularly in the short term, to ensure that the needs of the young agricultural workers and entrepreneurs are taken into account, even in social protection measures, financial stimulus packages, making sure that vulnerable youth groups are targeted. But in the medium and long term, as FAO, of course, we look forward to transitioning to more and better employment opportunities and business opportunities for the youth. So what we visualize in this sense is investing more on skills development and also innovative and maybe remote service delivery options. What I wanted to share with you is maybe some very concrete actions that we are trying to support at country level in the countries where we are working. As I was saying, we are committed to strengthen the partnerships with rural youth organizations so that they can play a role also in the COVID-19 responses. So, for instance, in Rwanda, in consultation with RIAF, which is the national forum, we decided to support them in upgrading their digital communication channels and also improving their membership engagement so that they could be more inclusive and support every kind of awareness raising, but also online marketing opportunities as a response to COVID. In Uganda, for instance, there's a technical working group that is supporting a national policy dialogue so that youth can discuss their challenges directly with government and other stakeholders at the national level. And in support to occupational health and safety, a 2 million mask campaign is being launched to ensure that the youth, entrepreneurs, and farmers comply with the protective measures and standards. And here the idea is also to support that the provision of these masks come from youth producers, young producers. Also in Uganda, we are supporting the Ministry of Agriculture and Labor to develop standard operating procedures directed to farmers and other actors in the agricultural value chain specific to COVID-19. In other cases, like in Senegal, we are supporting networks of young agripreneurs in their business continuity planning, providing also online info sharing and training sessions so that they can hear from experts. I think one point that I heard.
Yeah, go ahead, Mazia. 1 more minute, please.
Okay. No, I was saying that one point that I heard today coming up very often is the point of the access to ICTs, which has become vital now, and how this digital divide that is still there can be reduced. And in this sense, in the very short term, we have been also trying to support with these networks and groups of youth their access by, maybe providing internet bundles. But what is most important is that it's not provided to individuals, but to those local youth organizations that are our partners, because they can play a role as intermediaries, intermediaries, if you want, so that they can help other youth overcome these access barriers of connectivity and maybe digital literacy, and so they can be the ones who facilitate access to remote service delivery.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mazia, from UN-FAO. Very interesting interventions already happening from your end, very concrete kind of steps that you have been able to take, and based on the information that you are able to take up. So thanks for that. Maybe going back to Linda, we can maybe have 2 or 3 questions before we, because time is really running out. So maybe 2 or 3 questions, Linda, that are pressing.
Yes, okay, so I can start with a question to Marcia. There are people asking or saying that one of the major challenges is that there is a lack of knowledge online, and especially when it comes to urban farming. But in general, how can we make sure that the information is available online for the targeted youth?
Okay, Mazia, a minute.
Okay.
Hello.
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we've been looking at this. For instance, we realized that there are actually some COVID relief packages available at country level, maybe coming from financial institutions or even from mobile phone companies, but there's no real awareness about that. So what we are trying to do is to work with our national coordinators and partners to collect this information and at least make it available instead of having it dispersed into one specific place. And this is like a key role that platforms dedicated to youth can have. And again, to make this really reach out to the grassroots, then we will need to really work outside of the digital platforms. I mean, we cannot think that we will be universal and inclusive if we only work online. No? So that goes back to my point of information intermediaries that are important.
Okay, thanks so much, Mazia. Linda,
thank you.
Any more?
Great, thank you, Marcia. Yes, I have a question for Jacob. So we need to conserve the environment as well as we do farming. So how can we get youth to get into sustainable or agroecological farming other than that money-focused or short-term, there's sometimes unsustainable farming enterprises and farming practices? How can we get youth into sustainable farming?
Thanks so much, Linda. A minute, Jacob, please.
Thank you. Thank you. The first thing that we need to realize that the youth work from a background that is resource constrained, and this is where low cost approaches, technologies and skills are important. One of the approaches to agriculture that as practical action we are promoting among the youth is agroecology, So if we are going to, let's say, conserve our soils, then we can use conservation technology. If we are going to fertilize our farms, we can be able to do natural fertilization using, intercropping technologies that support each other. These are low-cost technologies that can be a little interesting and to be able to support, the youth to work around sustainable agriculture without actually devastating our environments, ensuring that, inputs are used optimally and that the planet is safeguarded. We need this natural capital for future generations. So that is one approach. The next approach is to get technology to work. We have been able to look at technologies that actually, enable youth in agribusiness to limit resource, deployment and almost get them to practice, precision agriculture, so that if it is water, the technology monitors water use, it is fertilizer application, which arguably would be, getting to fertilize their farms. It is done to precision so that we safeguard the resources, at the same time safeguard the planet. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jacob. Very interesting on innovations and how to support young people. And even from us as TwoScale, we continue to believe that indeed young people are very critical in the agricultural sector, but we need to also take cognizance of the fact that they are resource constrained, and how do we support them to be able to use what is already existing and what they already have, which are some of these things such as innovation, such as being tech savvy, and how do we support them, and how do we actually enlighten them and take that to scale actually. So yeah, really very interesting sentiments there. Thanks so much, Jacob. Linda, maybe one more?
Yes, on sort of the same line there. I'd like to direct the question to Anthony. One question that has received many votes. So young people are really doing a lot. They have very innovative concepts, but most of them lack connections, and the cost of engaging in productive activities like farming is really high. So how can networks and organizations come in handy to support youth in these aspects?
Anthony, a minute, please. Okay, doesn't seem to be forthcoming. So maybe someone else wants to chip in. Anthony, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Okay, good. Did you hear the question?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so please go ahead for a minute. Yeah.
Yes, what I can say is the simplest thing we can do is to create awareness. You see, a good example is we usually have so many conferences. These conferences happen in urban areas. Why can't we have these conferences also happen in rural areas? You see, that way we'll have so many people in the rural areas who might come to the conference, and maybe they can hear something good or something that they can maybe follow up. Because I think that will be the easiest way for someone to create awareness. Because once again, so many of these innovations, some of them happen also in rural areas. So you see, someone has made something, but he lacks a way whereby he can maybe sell his product to other people to hear it. So these organizations, I can say like FAO and other organizations who have funding, I think it will be better if you focus on the rural part, so that these people who have these technologies can maybe also be seen and be heard.
Thanks so much, Anthony. And I think one key thing that also...
Can I add just a second on what Anthony has talked about?
Please, Jacob, a second, yes.
Yes, so the issue here is networks, and I think it's important that we support the sector to work in an ecosystem that is inclusive of the youth. And for a long time, Practical Action has run a process of inclusive market systems called participatory market systems development. And this is a fantastic approach that brings in all the players in the sector, including the youth, so that they can be able to facilitate an environment which guarantees a win-win situation. I think one thing that we must appreciate is that the activities that the youth will be glad to run away with in agribusiness, on farm and off farm. Some that some other players can run away with. And what we have seen of in our experience and our practice is that when we facilitate an environment where people see opportunities for a win-win situation, which is not really a cutthroat, competition environment, then the youth happens to get an advantage. And this also extends to women. And we need to be in a position to facilitate such efforts so that everybody gets a role to play in a meaningful, beneficial, and productive manner. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jacob. One more thing I'd like to add from working for a program that is looking at scaling innovations and scaling participation of young people. What we have also been able to do is to try and look at what are the some of the innovations that exist with the young people, because also it's going to be a bit not okay for us to assume that young people do not have the knowledge. They do actually have a lot of knowledge, but most of the times that we do not capitalize on actually scaling that up and sharing that to more people. So what we do also is that we, in areas that we operate in countries that we work in, we also try and create that cross-learning exchange. And that is probably something also that Ruhakana is doing also in Uganda on how do you bring young people to another young person enterprise, be able to learn and to be able to kind of cross-learning experiences. So that will also be an opportunity to be able to bring more young people into the agricultural sector. I see the time is really running from our end. Linda, is there anything pressing per se with lots of votes?
Yes, I would like to ask one last question to Ian. And that is, how has gender been mainstreamed along the value chains? Because usually the marketing is male dominated. How do the female youth fit into this picture?
Okay, thanks so much. Very critical question. Ian, a minute, please.
So thank you, Alpha. Thank you, Mazia, for the question. I hope I'm audible this time.
Yes.
Okay. So to answer the question to do with the gender streamlining, perhaps I could only possibly comment on that question with reference to the projects we are doing and poultry value chain specifically. Now,
yes,
you find that 80 to 90% of people who are engaged in poultry farming are actually women and youth. It's rarely ever men. And the reason for that is a cultural aspect. You find that men would prefer to say they have cows and goats and huge tracts of farms rather than say they have chicken. So chicken has traditionally in Africa been known to be an activity for women. So that being the case, you find that most of our projects, even under 2-scale, there's a huge focus on women and youth, purely because they're the ones who are actually providing the labor and who are actually actively engaged. So even in our trainings at the grassroots, even in our interactions, we really focus on building the capacity of women who are engaged in poultry farming together with the youth. You'll also find that most of our training programs, especially at the grassroots, are actually very, even in terms of the illustrations, you find a lot of times that the illustration actually just represents women and youth. If you go through most of our training manuals, you find that our focus is always on the women, because we feel that once you empower a woman, you're able to empower the entire family, and the entire family is actually able to increase its income and the quality of their livelihood. I hope I've answered.
Thanks so much. Yes, thanks so much, Ian. And yes, gender mainstreaming and gender inclusion is most of the times is value chain specific, and most of the times is context specific. And yeah, there are many opportunities and many resources where we can actually see how this is being done from the UN-FAO website, from SIANI's website, from other partners engaged in this webinar. We can actually capture a lot of material from the online platforms. So please feel free after this to also interact with some of us, and also to go to the website and also get some of this information. We should be there. Linda, do we have any more pressing?
That was all from the questions. I would like to say thank you to each and every one of the attendees for voting and putting so many good questions into the Q&A. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks so much. At this point in time, we are actually coming to an end of the webinar. So it's going to be very much because the time is really pressing for us. So what we can do is that we can actually, we want to actually say a lot of thanks in terms of anyone who participated in this webinar. We had a lot of interest from very many people, from very many partners. And yeah, just like any other day, not everyone is able to make it to the webinar in terms of various logistical issues. But we really do appreciate your time, and we really do appreciate that you were able to actually join for this 1.5 hour session. But above all, we are very much grateful in terms of the panelists and the speakers who took their time to share their experiences and to share what they've been going through and some of the things that we actually seeing in terms of the support they need and what they've been able to get so far. So moving on forward, some of you might be asking, okay, so what next? What do you expect after this? And as partners, we see a few options on the table. And one is we're trying to look out for new opportunities to apply for new funding to be able to support young people as partners. So that will be on the mainstream in terms of working together to see what are the opportunities outside there to be able to come in and support young people in the agribusiness sector and continue to increase their engagement even after post-COVID, which will be very, very much critical. And then number two is also, we will be able to put together all this information that we've been able to capture in terms of information that comes from the online discussion platform, but also information that comes from this webinar. We'll be able to capture everything together and put it together in a document, 1 or 2 documents that we'll be able to share with everyone, even those who are not able to participate, we'll be able to share with everyone and say, there are some of the things that actually came out, and we hope and we anticipate that actually this is some of the information that can be used to even lobby for new policies on youth engagement in agribusiness, also to be able to inform some new projects and new initiatives that will come up from different partners to actually support young people. But above all, we hope that we can actually keep in touch with everyone. We'll be able to share through sharing the information, be able to keep in touch, but also be able to see how do we support best all those that were present, but also even those who are not present. And if at all in those who participated, there are any development partners who see opportunities for collaboration, definitely, we'll be able to share. Please feel free to get in touch with us. We will be able to share also in the documents that we're going to circulate the contacts of these panelists who are able to speak, in case, because I've seen in case someone is interested to work with someone, then you can actually just reach out to them and be able to engage them and be able to work together. We shall be able to see how to catalyze some of these collaborations, such as the one between Ian from Home Range Poultry and Mayombe Hatcheries and Navies. So we'll be able to see how do we support such kind of engagement, such kind of cross-learning experiences. So once again, thanks so much to all the partners who put this together, SIANI, CCAFS, 2Scale, Practical Action, AgriProFocus, CSAYN, yes, and UN-FAO, and anyone else who participated even behind the scenes, our marketing and communications people who are able to share this as wide as possible, our logistical and support system today, Matthew and Linda, and anyone else who was involved in all these preparations. We want to thank you so much, and we want to say a lot of appreciations from us as a team that put this together. So without further ado, if there is nothing from Matthew and from Linda or from Catherine, is there anything from Linda, Matthew, or Catherine?
Nope, we're good. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone who participated.
Thanks so much.
Also, just to say thank you to all the participants for all the questions. And I've seen some very interesting collaborations already coming in through the chat. So we are going to put this together, as Alpha said. We'll do a blog, we'll do an info note, and we'll try to see how we can engage with policymakers to see how we can build resilience moving forward. So thank you very much. And thank you, Alpha, for the wonderful moderation.
Thanks so much, everyone. Without further ado, I'd like to call this to an end and say, see you soon, and let the movement grow bigger, and let the struggle and the partnership even grow wider and a little continue. Thanks so much, everyone, and see you in other circles as well. Thanks.